Welcome, everyone, to today's Explainer. I'm absolutely thrilled you're here because, well, we're looking at something genuinely special. Today, we're diving into a really heartwarming piece by poem hunter poet Denis Martindale. It's a poem called Followed by a Furry Feline, written on June 1st, 2026. Now, I know when a lot of us hear poetry analysis, we immediately picture, dusty old textbooks and rigid structures. But trust me, today is different. We are jumping straight into a fun, structured narrative all about unexpected responsibility. I seriously can't wait to break this down with you. So let's just get right into it.
Okay, to really appreciate this story, we've got to set the scene first. And it is a surprisingly high-stakes environment. The whole driving force behind the poet's inspiration here is actually a matter of survival. See, the UK had just been hit by this overwhelming heat wave. We're talking sweltering temperatures, the kind of heat that literally drains the life out of you the second you step outside. Martindale was specifically worrying about how vulnerable animals, the strays out there without a steady supply of water or a cool place to hide, were coping in those brutal conditions. It really makes you stop and ask, how do they even survive when the pavement is scorching and every water source is totally dried up?
And honestly, that incredibly harsh reality leads us right to the poet's core thesis. Martindale makes it crystal clear that he wrote this poem to make a case for helping animals, even if it's literally just one at a time. Because let's face it is so easy to feel completely overwhelmed by massive problems like extreme weather or global stray populations, right? You might catch yourself thinking, well, I can't possibly save them all, so what can my little contribution actually do? But the overarching lesson of this narrative advocates for everyday, individual empathy. It's all about the massive power of a single, focused action.
So, to make this theme of empathy really pop, the poet brilliantly contrasts it with the most ordinary, exhausting setup you can imagine. Our story kicks off with a completely mundane grocery run. The poet is just walking home in the middle of this intense heat wave. He's practically ready to collapse. As he puts it, he's almost dropping from the pure exhaustion of that sweltering sun. And what is he carrying? Some kind of essential, life-saving survival gear? Nope, he's been out buying pot noodles and fizzy drinks. It's such a great comedic contrast. He's just a regular guy running a very regular, maybe slightly unhealthy errand, completely clueless that his life is about to change in a matter of seconds.
And then, bam, the moment happens. It's your classic meet cute, but, feline style. He's just trudging along with his noodles and sodas, and suddenly, he spots what he affectionately calls a little puddycat up ahead. The stray cat locks eyes with the poet, and her reaction is totally instant. Her tail shoots straight up in the air, which, if you know cats, is that classic sign of a super friendly greeting, like she's just filled with absolute glee. She doesn't hesitate, she doesn't hide. Instead, in a literal flash, she speeds right over his side. She has officially chosen her target.
Now think about it. If a stray cat runs right up to you, your very first thought is probably, oh man, I need to feed it. But remember, our poet is carrying absolutely nothing but fizzy drinks and instant noodles. He softly says, "Hello, kitty," and she meows right back at him. But then he immediately launches into this verbal confession. He tells her, flat out, "I've got no fish, no milk, no meat, and no cat food with which to treat." He is actively trying to disqualify himself from the job of pet owner. He's laying out all the totally logical reasons why he just doesn't have the resources to take care of her.
But what's so fascinating here is the complete disconnect between how the poet sees himself and how the cat sees him. It's a total perspective flip. The poet is thinking, look, I'm skint, meaning he's broke, and he obviously has no cat food. He views himself as entirely inadequate for this. But from the cat's perspective? Well, according to the poet's own commentary, she's thinking, my hero. She recognizes right away that this guy is a total soft touch. She has this incredibly opportunistic mindset. She just knows that if she plays her cards right, this guy is exactly the ticket she's been looking for to secure a brand new home. So how does she respond to his perfectly logical, well-reasoned argument about having no fish or milk? She completely ignores it. She takes absolutely no notice and just nuzzles his ankle instead. It is such a powerful, sweet little moment. She totally dismisses his lack of groceries. She isn't just sniffing around for a quick meal. She is firmly pressing her case for companionship. By affectionately poking him and nuzzling his leg, she bypasses his brain entirely and goes straight for his heart. She is 100% determined to win over this soft touch.
But the poet, he still tries to resist. He tries to just keep walking, to continue his miserable trudge home in the heat. And this is really where the emotional tension of the poem hits its peak. As he starts to walk away, the cat begins to meow incredibly fast, acting completely aghast at the very thought of being abandoned. And this forces the poet to confront a pretty brutal reality. If he walks away right now, she has no milk, she has no water, she's going to be left totally alone, right there in the middle of a dangerous, scorching heat wave, without a single friend in the world to help her. And man, the guilt of leaving her to fend for herself in those conditions just starts to weigh incredibly heavily on him.
Which brings us right to the ultimate narrative climax. The poet has this major internal reckoning. He admits to himself again that he's, almost skint and definitely isn't a guy who's worth a mint. He doesn't have financial wealth. But then he realizes he possesses a different, honestly, way more important kind of currency. He says great kindness is a thing for which I'm known. Despite his totally empty pockets and lack of cat food, he decides he absolutely cannot abandon this vulnerable little creature to the overwhelming heat. His character and his inherent kindness completely overrule his practical doubts.
Now let's look at how this relationship builds, because the pacing of this whole encounter is just fantastic. The escalation of their bond is surprisingly fast. He goes from being just some guy doing a mundane grocery run for noodles to this sweet ankle-nuzzling meet-cute. And within 10 minutes, when he gently leans down to hold her, she boldly leaps right up onto his shoulder. I mean, it literally goes from 0 to 100 in the space of a single walk home, culminating in this beautiful, lifelong commitment where they're going to be friends forever. And that actually brings us to my absolute favorite line in the entire poem. When she leaps up onto his shoulder, he notes that she does it as if I were the master she would own. It is just a brilliant piece of charming irony. The whole conceptual background of the title might imply this merciful master coming down to take pity on a poor stray. But the hilarious reality of cat ownership shines right through here. The cat is actually the one claiming him. She selected him, she vetted him, and now she owns him as they head off on their journey back home together.
The poem wraps up with this incredibly joyful resolution. The adoption is a massive success. She proves to be playful and absolutely sublime. She becomes his constant companion, precious and perfect, or I should say, perfect, in every single way. The cat, for sure, found her soft touch and a much-needed safe refuge from that awful heat wave, but the poet flips the script on us one last time. He realizes that when she found him, that was actually his lucky day. The act of saving her ended up bringing immeasurable joy and companionship right back into his own life. So if we zoom out from this one heartwarming story for a second, we come right back to the core lesson the author wanted to share with us. It's this beautiful concept of everyday empathy. Everyday empathy is simply the act of stepping up to help a single vulnerable creature, creating a monumental impact for that one specific life. Look, our poet couldn't stop the UK heatwave. He couldn't save every single animal suffering on the streets that day, but he could save one. And by doing that, he entirely changed her world, and she entirely changed his. It is just such a powerful reminder that we don't need to be wealthy or perfectly prepared to make a really profound difference. Which leaves us with this final, lingering thought. As you go about your day today, maybe doing something as completely mundane as carrying home groceries or, hey, even instant noodles, keep your eyes open. The opportunity to show great kindness usually arrives totally unannounced, sometimes with a tail held high in glee. So I'm going to leave you with this provocative question to ponder. If a stray, whether that's an animal or even a person in need, crossed your path today, would you be ready? Would you be their lucky day? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, and I'll see you all next time.